Hey, good morning, everybody. It is time for Tea in a Book Tuesday, episode 47 with author Lisa Prysock. And I am drinking a Lipton tea today with some local honey in it. And I hope you have something to drink that you enjoy and a few minutes to chat with me. Today, I am answering two questions. The first is, do you get any writing done when you're at the hospital? And no. The answer to that is no. I usually don't. And there was a desk in the hospital room where my son Nick was at, and I eyed it, kind of had my eye on it, and thought about, maybe I could just come and keep him company and write through some of the night and just be there for him. But also there's the risk of COVID and all of that to consider, and the fact that he really probably doesn't need all the distraction of me being there when he probably just mostly needed to rest. So we're just glad that he is home this week and looking forward to a good week ahead and more good things in his future to come. And just so proud of him for being courageous through the ups and downs of all this. And the second question I'm asking is, what are some of the stages that I've come through as a writer? And this is a great question. It comes to me from a reader on my newsletter subscriber list from some months ago. And I hope you'll find some of my answers to this as humorous as I do. And that's the first thing I wanted to mention is I try to approach the different things that I learn with a bit of a sense of humor. And I think in this industry especially, it's really important that you're able to laugh at yourself when you look back and just learn from everything and keep moving forward. So I took time to jot down a few things, and I came up with 8 different stages that I went through, although I know there are more, many more, but these were some of the major ones that I really struggled with in the beginning. So one of my first stages was being pretty heavy on comma use, and I still am an Oxford comma girl, but I have learned to temper that a little bit more, and I think there should be some sentences in the story where there are no commas. So if you don't have that going on, it's something you'll need to remedy. And I know that there were times when I felt like I had overused the comma, so that's really important when you're an Oxford comma person. The next stage was my exclamation point stage. And I had to laugh at myself, but I really did go through this stage where I was using way too many exclamation points. And the manuscript was much better when I took some of them out, and I just had to laugh at myself afterwards on that one. Also, I feel like I came through a third stage of, I call it my overly descriptive stage, where I spent a lot of time describing things that maybe I belabored a little bit much. And I just am really thankful for my editor who would point out, hey, Lisa, you only need like 3 things there to describe this situation, or I'd cut it down. You have like 7, maybe just mention 2 or 3 of these things. And, that just helped me grow so much as a writer. And there are times when I feel like more is needed, and you have to weigh that out and use your gut, when you need a little more to paint that vivid picture in the mind of the reader. Then I also went through the writing tighter phase, where I discovered I was using a lot of extra words and phrases in my writing that just seemed not necessary and overly repetitive. So that was a stage that was really hard for me to grasp. And it's also a technique that is different in historical writing and contemporary. Historical writing is typically a little more flowery. Not always, but it typically is, versus contemporary writing that needs to be really super tight. So, just getting rid of extra phrases that weren't needed. And if you can read the sentence and say to yourself, well, this reads the same with or without that phrase, then you don't need it. And then my sixth phase, what's a reader group? I had no idea when I first started out that there were all these reader groups and book groups on Facebook that could help me with marketing a book. So that was a real eye-opener for me, and it was a wonderful period of growth when I discovered it. And also, you have to discover the rules with each one of those groups, and I struggle to keep up with that. But how I market books probably changed so much once I discovered reading reader groups and book groups. So that was another huge learning curve that I went through. The seventh one, and these aren't in order. I went through these phases at different stages, and one of my earliest phases was connecting with other writers. That was a huge thing for me. I didn't know very many writers when I started out, and that was a big turning point. Also, my eighth phase was, I'd call it, and I still think I'm in that phase quite a bit, just not being afraid to try new things, because we are constantly evolving as writers. At least I know I am. And so things like my editing, my writing skills, my writing style, the way I interact and engage with readers, that often changes based on how much time I have and what else is happening in my world. And also just marketing methods. You have to be afraid not to try new things and get out there and see what is working and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you and your audience. So those are some of the different learning curves that I've come through. There are many more I could mention. One was the 2 spaces after every sentence. I don't think I mentioned that, but it took me a long time. I think that's my 8th one, actually. And it took me a long time to get used to and be willing to give up the traditional use of 2 spaces after every period or every sentence. I didn't want to come into that modern day thing that is happening now. It was a real struggle for me to try it, and then once I did, a struggle to adapt to it. I think I've mastered it finally. Didn't want to do it. I didn't like it, and I fought against it for a really long time. So if you saw this video, thanks for joining me today. Give me a shout out or a GIF, or tell me how you're doing. Maybe let me know if there are some things on my list that make you laugh, or that you're glad that I went through that phase because I learned something that made my writing better and more enjoyable to you. But I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for joining me today. Tina Book Tuesday, episode 47, and I hope you have a great week ahead.